Hello, and welcome to the session, Reach Higher for Language and Academic Success. I'm Deborah Short. I'm the Director of Academic Language, Research, and Training, and I'm currently TESOL International Association's President for the 2020 to 2021 year. I'm proud to be an author on this new series, Reach Higher for National Geographic Learning. Let me tell you about today's session. I'm going to begin by explaining some of the benefits for integrating language and content instruction. And then I'll have a chance, in our limited time together, to share some techniques that help with teaching content area vocabulary, oral language skills, and reading and writing skills. But first, let me ask you, do you teach academic content in English to your young learners? Some of you might, some of you may not. But those who don't probably will soon, because around the world, more and more people are choosing to learn English as a new language. And they learn it for their jobs, for school, for travel, for lots of reasons. There's also a growing interest in learning language through content. So that's what we're going to look at a little bit. Why would you integrate content instruction with English? Well, I'll tell you, because it's fun. Because it doesn't feel like you're doing language drills. You're just using the language as you're learning some subject area topic. Think about it from your students' perspective. It will probably pique their curiosity. It will tap into their interests. It will help you as the teacher promote English language and literacy development with deliberate practice and meaningful activities. For your students, it will connect with school subjects that they are studying, like science or history. And it will also help prepare them for English medium instruction that they might have in the future, perhaps in secondary school. But another really good reason is that it will help boost comprehension. Research shows us that students comprehend more when they're interested in learning about a particular topic. They dig deeper. And that's why I'm excited about Reach Higher, because these materials will help you and your students develop academic vocabulary skills, oral language skills, and reading and writing skills. And you know that when National Geographic is involved, the lessons will be engaging, they'll be motivating, and they'll actually be practical. They'll help your students with school. Each instructional unit is thematic. The set of lessons focus on one content topic. They begin with a big question. The big question is something that students are interested in, but they may not know the answer to. They might have an initial idea, but as they move through the unit, they learn more and more about it. So let's take a look at a big question. Here, what is community? They might have an idea, but as they study the lesson, as they work through the unit, they might get additional answers. The benefits are of big questions are written here. It sparks student interest. It puts inquiry at the center of learning. That means everything that they're doing is involved in trying to find an answer. So every reading that you ask them to do will have a purpose. It's to investigate that big question. And the topics won't have an easy answer, so they have to keep reading. They have to move forward. And as they read, they gain new knowledge. And their responses might change. What they thought initially might not be accurate after they've done more reading and more discussion about the topic. Or, for some of them, the reading might confirm what they initially thought. But another good thing about big questions is that they bring the students' lived experiences into the classroom in a positive way, so that their cultural knowledge is an asset in participating in these lessons. And for your perspective as a teacher, it makes the tasks that you're asking them to do more meaningful and therefore more engaging to the students. Let's take a look at this sample lesson, which is focused on a science topic. And as you can see, the big question is asking, how are animals different from one another? Now, using this big question, we can help build student background knowledge and their vocabulary skills. And they'll use that knowledge to then discuss the topic, to read about it, and to write about it. So let's take a look at a National Geographic video that students could watch to help gain some knowledge about this topic.
There are millions of animals around the world. Snakes, fish, gorillas, birds, they all look different from one another. Have you ever thought about why? What makes a living thing look the way it does? Hello, my name is Lucy Cook. I'm a National Geographic explorer and a zoologist, which means I study animals. I can tell you more about what makes a living thing look the way it does. I've seen all kinds of animals in my travels, from cuddly to downright weird. Animals have distinct physical characteristics called traits. The number of legs a living thing has is one kind of trait. Spiders, for instance, have 8 legs, while snakes don't have any legs. Animals inherit these traits from their parents. Giraffes inherit their parents' long necks. Those long necks allow giraffes to reach leaves high up in the trees. Male peacocks inherit their bold feathers. These feathers help them attract mates and pass on their traits. Not all traits are inherited. Some traits are acquired. An organism can acquire traits from their environment. For example, the pink colour of flamingos is an acquired trait. Flamingos are born with white feathers. Some foods in a flamingo's diet cause its feathers to turn pink.
Now, don't you think your students would enjoy watching a video like that and learning about animal traits? They get to see a real scientist, this zoologist who works with National Geographic. They have lots of visual support as they're learning about this topic. But then, of course, we as teachers have to give them and teach them the vocabulary words that they would use in order to talk about what they're learning. And we will do that in several different ways. Probably the basic instruction is to teach the words with support. Help them understand what the words mean. Now, in our materials, we divide words into 2 categories: a set of words that deal with the specific subject area for the topic of the day or of the lesson, and then another set I'll share with you in a minute. What you see on this page are some visuals that help support the students' understanding of the words, and they're organized in a way that they're connected. You've got the picture of the flamingo with a beak and some of its feathers, the alligator, the tail, the mouth, and then the scales. You've got the tiger, see a paw or the feet, the tail, and then the fur that the tiger has. What's also important is as we introduce these words, we give them some language practice right from the start, so they're getting used to saying the words and thinking about their meaning. Now, the second category is more in the sense of general academic terms. These are more cross-curricular. They're words that are really beneficial for students to know because they can use them in lots of different subjects. Think about the words here, alike and different. Well, obviously we're using it here with a science topic, but you use these words in math, you use the words in history, you can use them in almost any subject that's being studied. So they're really valuable to teach our students as well and give them practice with using these words. Now, when we are introducing the words, we might have some set routines that students will be comfortable with and understand that this is the process that they go through to understand the definitions. We would begin by pronouncing the word so students know how to say it and also can hear their classmates saying it so they'll recognize it in the future when they hear it orally. We then might have the students do some self-reflection, rating their knowledge of the word. Maybe you ask them to share with their fingers, right? 1, I know what this word means. I could use it in a sentence. Or 2, it looks familiar. I think I know what it is, but I can't quite say. Or 3, I have no idea. I don't know what this word means. I hope you'll teach it to me. And that's what the teachers would do. If all of the students know a word, you don't have to spend a lot of time teaching it. But if it's one they don't know, well, then we'll have to define it. And we'll want to do that in student-friendly terms, right? Help them understand what it means in a very simple message, a simple way. But then we would go ahead and elaborate it. So by elaborating, by giving them another explanation, we can help deepen their understanding of what the word means. We can also use other activities to help focus on the vocabulary words. One is the 4 corners technique, and I like this. You just take a rectangle and divide it into 4 quadrants. And the students would write the word and their native language translation in one quadrant, draw a picture or download one from the internet in another quadrant, use the word in a sentence themselves. They generate their own sentence and write a definition of the word. So they have lots of practice opportunities with the word using this 4-cornered technique. Now, another thing that we can do is play games. We certainly know that our young learners enjoy playing games, and they can play with these words that they've been studying. So you might set up 2 columns of words. The students have to take at least one word from one column and a word from the other column and create a new sentence. So very simply, one student might say, a bird has a beak and feathers. So they're using the word and then they're actually using bird, beak, and feather, 3 from this other column. For a student that can make a little more sophisticated sentence, he or she might say, well, birds and tigers both have legs, but a tiger doesn't have a beak. You can see they end up using a lot of those words through this kind of a game activity. And as they develop the words, we can also help them think about word relationships, how they go together. One activity I like is a foldable, where you take a sheet of paper and you fold it in half. And then on one half, you cut a few flaps. And those are useful. Let me show you how one of them might be created for this particular lesson. Now we're talking about animal traits, and we're talking about 3 types of animals. So I wrote bird, amphibian, reptile. That's on the outside. And then I open up the paper with my flaps. And on the inside, the top part, the students would draw pictures or cut them out of a magazine, download from the internet. And then they would list some of the features or some of the traits with that animal. Now they have in a packet not only the key words that they have, but they have the visual supports, and they also can talk about the relationships among these 3 types of animals. Another thing to do to help with this vocabulary and to work on their listening and speaking skills is to create some oral language practice activities. And it's always good to do them with partners, at least part of the time, because you know that all students will have a chance to talk. If they're partnered up and each partner has a role, then each student has to listen and then respond, or speak and then be responded to. So let's look at one little partner talk that could happen about these animal traits. So we'd have a student and identify which ones are going to be partner A, which are partner B. Partner A then is going to use the new vocabulary and a language frame that you've set up for a specific purpose. And in this case, it's a language frame that will give an opinion. And the frame is, one trait I'd like to have is because. And they would complete that sentence talking to their partner. And a student might say, one trait I'd like to have is a beak because I like to smell flowers. maybe a little silly, but that's a possibility. And then we would have partner 2 have some responses. And what I've found is it's useful to give multiple responses so they can choose one that most readily suits the occasion. So one response might be, tell me more about that trait. And so partner A would say more about a beak. Another response could be, I like that trait, but I prefer, and then that student B would give a different trait, perhaps fur, and the reason would be to stay warm. A third response might be, oh no, that trait's not important to me because, and then again, has to give an explanation. So in this way, we're scaffolding this oral language practice for our students, and we're giving them a chance to talk about the concept that's being studied, traits, and use some of the vocabulary that they've been learning. Now, we've introduced them through the video to build some background on the concept, and we've given them some vocabulary. So now we want to deepen the knowledge. We can do that through academic reading. And again, we're doing this reading to investigate the big question that sort of holds our whole unit together. Now, because we're language teachers, we're also going to provide some of the literacy skill instruction before the students dig into the reading. We'll teach them a skill. We might introduce them to some genre knowledge. We can teach them a reading comprehension strategy as well and give them a chance to practice it. And then afterwards, we'll let them talk about the reading. Maybe we'll even have them write about the reading as well. What I really like about the materials that we have in Reach Higher is that the literature is very multicultural and it's very relevant. We might have a fiction piece and we would pair it with a nonfiction piece. We might have another nonfiction piece that we pair with another type of genre. So within a unit, students would have 4 reading selections, different genres, and a lot of ways to gain information. What's also nice is all of them have some audio supports, so students could read on their own or they could read with their families. Now, I talked about providing instruction. We do want to teach literacy to our students, so we might have to teach some reading skills. We might give them some tools like a graphic organizer to help them use that skill and record some of the information that they're learning as they're going through a text. We might also introduce them to genres, and I think that's really important because academic instruction involves a wide variety of genres. In this case, it would be a fact book, so it's a nonfiction text, and we can teach students how to read a fact book. We then also can introduce a reading strategy. For this particular lesson, we might use making connections as the reading strategy, and then ask students to make connections at various stages as they're reading the book. So let's look inside the book. Here we could put that strategy in action. They're reading about a kangaroo who's hopping, and they're reading about a horse that's running. Now they might make a connection to themselves. Can they hop? Can they run? As a teacher, you might have them stand up in class and practice hopping. Maybe practice running, maybe inside the class, maybe outside of the classroom. They can talk about whether or not horses can hop or kangaroos can run. So they're connecting themselves to these animals, or they're comparing the 2 animals within the story. And this is really important. We teach the strategy and then we use the strategy as the students are reading the text selection. And then when they finish, we're going back to that big question. What did they learn? Give them a chance to talk about it. Have them think about the new information and process it in different ways. So again, we can use a partner activity where we're building up their oral language skills, their listening and their speaking abilities with a partner in a strategic way. So we've set them up for deliberate practice in a meaningful task. Remember what the big question was? It was, how are animals different from one another? So let's say all the partner A's have to think about the readings and think about how they were alike. And then the partner B's think about the readings and how they were different. So we're helping them learn that critical thinking skill of understanding likeness and differences, and they're applying it to the text. So then they pair up a partner A with a partner B. They talk about how A talks about how it's alike, B talks about how it's different. And then they can find new partners so that they have an opportunity to repeat or to clarify or to improve on their language production. Now, I said we would give them a chance to talk about it, but we also want to develop their writing skills. So we can go ahead and help give them some writing tasks as well. Now, certainly we can teach them direct writing skills, how to put a sentence together, how to add adjectives to make something more descriptive, and then we can give some writing projects. So within this particular unit, here are two example projects. One is that they would draw and label. Say they choose the favorite animal that they've been studying, and then they can label the animal's parts, identify the traits, talk about some of the features that the animal has. And they could share that drawing with their parents. They could share it with a classmate and practice their oral language based on their writing. But this other one is even more sophisticated for the students. They get to pretend they're a scientist. They might be like Lucy, who they saw in the video. And they're studying one particular animal. So they draw it, they describe what it does to survive. They might make other observations about that animal, and they write it down, say, in a journal. So here they have a chance not only to practice writing skills, to bring in the content knowledge that they have, but also to focus on a possible career, to have a sense of what it might be, how it might be if they were a scientist. So we're ending our session now, and I want to thank you for participating with me and learning more about Reach Higher and how we integrate language and content instruction. We looked at some of the benefits, how it helps develop students' content knowledge. It strengthens their reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills, and it prepares them for English medium classrooms, maybe for their jobs in the future, helps them be bilingual as well. And then we also explored some techniques for teaching academic vocabulary, for providing oral language practice for our students, and for developing their reading and writing skills. Thank you for being with me, and I hope you'll be motivated to look further into the Reach materials. We have a number of different levels, and I think that you'll find them very engaging for your students. And one way that you can do that is go to the National Geographic website, which you see here at eltngl.com. Thanks very much for spending this time with me.